Welcome back to Time for Change Kitchen. I'm Danielle Bassoni. Today we are going to make a marvelously delicious spicy Cajun cornbread. I use this recipe with my Cajun Blackeyed Peas, which is awesome with this dish. And it's very easy to make. First we'll start with a cup of cornmeal, and this is organic. You can use Bob's Red Mill medium grain cornmeal, but this is actually cornmeal that I ground myself from popping corn, and it is organic. And then we'll use a half a cup of whole wheat pastry flour and a half a cup of masa harina, and this is organic, and you can get this from Bob's Red Mill as well, or there are other sources online. To find these sources, you can go to my website, timeforchangekitchen.com. And so masa harina is a roasted corn that has been soaked in slake lime, and that makes it much more digestible. And it makes for, adding these two ingredients makes for a little lighter cornmeal or cornbread without making it so cakey. I don't really like a cakey cornmeal because frankly it's not what I grew up with. You may like it more cakey, and you can add more pastry flour if you do. To that we are going to add a tablespoon of baking powder, let's get it all in there, and a quarter of a teaspoon of baking soda. And we are going to add a half teaspoon of salt. And I'm also going to add a teaspoon of crushed pepper flakes. Now, if you do not care for spicy food, you can certainly leave that out. If you like it more spicy, you can add more spice. It's up to you. And so we're going to stir this all together. We're going to move to the stove. I have the stove. The most important thing, and I forgot to tell you in advance, but let's tell you this before you add any liquid. Before you moisten this, you need to have your stove, your oven, preheated to 350 degrees. It's very important that you do that first, because once you mix this together, you will not have time to wait for the oven to preheat. So be sure to do that first. Just before we add the liquids, we're going to add a quarter of a cup of whole corn kernels. You can use fresh or you can use frozen. You can thaw it or not thaw it. It doesn't matter. I'm adding a tablespoon and a half of apple cider vinegar to a cup and 3/4 of water. Normally I don't use oil, but I really don't see any way around it in this recipe. We're only using a teaspoon of oil, and this is to grease our pan. And the pan has to be quite hot before we pour the cornmeal batter into it. And that causes it to rise up and sear around the edges, which gives us that lovely crust, crispy crust that cornbread is known for. Okay, so let's move to the stove. Before mixing the batter, make sure the oven is preheated to 350 degrees. Turn the burner on medium-high heat. Add 1 teaspoon vegetable oil to an 8 or 9 inch skillet. I'm using an 8-inch skillet here. Spread the oil around the pan, bathing the sides as you go. Allow the pan to become hot. You want the oil hot, but not smoking. When a drop of water added to the pan begins to sizzle, it's time to mix your batter. Pour the vinegar water into the cornmeal mixture and stir with a whisk just enough to remove all the lumps. Do not over stir. Add the corn and stir this into the batter. Add another drop of water to the pan to make sure it is hot. The water should sizzle on contact. Again, bathe the sides of the pan with the hot oil. Next, pour in the cornmeal batter. It should sizzle and pull away slightly from the sides of the pan. This will help to form a nice crispy crust on the bottom and the sides of the cornbread. Don't worry that the batter has thickened somewhat. This is completely normal. Give the pan a little shake to level the batter and transfer the pan to your preheated oven, placing it on the middle oven rack. Set your timer to 50 minutes. When the timer goes off, remove the pan from the oven. Be sure to wear oven mitts and set on a burner to cool for 10 minutes. Welcome back. So the cornbread has been resting for 10 minutes, and that's kind of an important step because bread continues to cook as it's cooling off, and so unless you just have to have a hot piece right now, it's better to let it rest for a little bit. Sometimes that will prevent you from having a gummy cornbread. So we're going to cut this. Oh, that's perfect. And I like to use a bread knife for this just to get a nice clean cut. And I'm going to turn a piece towards you just so you can see it. This is a perfect moist but fully cooked cornbread for you to enjoy on any occasion, especially with Cajun Blackeyed Peas and cornbread. I'm Danielle Bissoni, serving up whole foods for whole health.